Columbus of Detroit, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, a Frenchman, arrived on the river bank of what we now know as Detroit. He built a fort there. The French had already started some settlements in what we now know as Canada. They were attempting to find what is now known as the Northwest Passage. Remember that Christopher Columbus, was sent by the Spanish. He was attempting to find a way to the Indies by going west. But he crashed in the Caribbean thinking he was in India, and he named the people Indians. And because of Columbus being lost, we got Indians in America, and we got Indians in India. Instead of just saying, no, Columbus was lost, this man didn't know where he was going. But they set up some settlements in Canada. In the 1701, they built the first settlement on the riverfront, and they was named Fort Pontchartrain du Detroit. Fort Pontchartrain du Detroit. All right? And of course, it's right on the riverbank. They built a fort, you know, a wooden barricaded fort, and they began to trade with the Native Americans, mainly for fur. So the fur trade begins in Detroit. They had already been doing it in Canada, but now they're beginning it in what they call Detroit. The French called it Detroit. And of course they corrupted the pronunciation of the Ojibwe people to Chippewa. So Chippewa and Ojibwe, that's the same people. But Chippewa is the European corruption of their real name, Ojibwe. Okay. So they begin to trade. Of course the most abundant animal with fur is the beaver. So beaver fur becomes the most abundant fur right here, right in this area. But they also trade mink, ermine, raccoon, rabbit, fox, all of those other animals with fur. But beaver being the most abundant becomes the main fur trade. And of course, what they're trading to the Native Americans are metal items like iron, pots and pans, rope, liquor, and other items from Europe that the Native Americans don't already have. And eventually, there becomes a trade addiction. The Native Americans they need these things. They're now dependent on these things, and so the Europeans can take them away and use them as tools to manipulate the Native Americans. And use it as a divide and conquer technique. Same thing they did in Africa, same thing they did in Asia, same thing they did in South America. So they do that here in Detroit. So they do that here in Detroit. So from 1701 to the 1760s, this was a French settlement. It started as a fort on the river, and the fort grows and grows all the way to that street right there. That becomes the limit of how far the fort goes, and the name of that street is Fort Street. The reason it's Fort, the name of it is Fort Street, is that's the boundary of the fort. The fort came that far. They kept adding more to it, till it got that far. In the 1750s, a war between the French and the British occurred, called the French and Indian War in America. But everywhere else in the world, it's called the 7 Years' War. It's the same war. The British named the war French and Indians because that's who they were fighting. They were fighting the French and the Indians. The Native Americans generally would mostly allied with the European group they came in contact with first. So they came in contact with the French prior to coming in contact with the British. So they more of them allied with the French than the British. So it was called the French and Indian War. The British win.
From the British perspective?
Yes, from the British perspective. That's why it's called that. So the British win, and they take over this area, as well as most of Canada. They take most of Canada from the French, who took it from the Native Americans, and they take this settlement from the French, who took it from the Native Americans. And other places in the world they took too. There are other places in Asia that they took from the French. But still, the French become the main residents of it. They're still the main people living here. Even though the British have political control, they're not the primary residents. Some British do settle here, but they don't outnumber the French.
But I understand that this cannon has some historical history behind it. I had looked it up, and if you look up the War of 1812 and the French and Indian War with Chief Tecumseh and Chief Pontiac, it has a lot of historical roots with that. And Fort Detroit, yes, this used to be a fort, Detroit. You ever wonder why it was called Frank Fort? You turn it around and it becomes Fort Frank. Ha! But I just wanted to personally get up close and personal with the cannon before they take it back. But so many memories with this cannon over the years as playing in Parkside as a child, and didn't really know the true history and the significance of the cannon until I got older and started getting involved with the Parkside Past, Present, and Future Committee with the picnics and community events. And by conducting our social media page and researching and doing more, and knowing that it has historical roots that goes all the way back, wow, to the 1700s, 1800s, and the early 1900s. And even though it says it was made by a Frenchman, that's just over in Canada. That's just over a skip, hop, and a jump from us. But just knowing that this area here, back then used to be a fort territory where merchants would come and do their trades at the forts and the ports and stuff between Canadians and Michiganders. But just historical roots. I just wanted to touch bases and touch this and say I'm glad and honored to be a part of the Parkside community and this historical monument. I'm sad to see it go, but at the same time, bittersweet, where I know that it will go not just up for storage, but hopefully they'll take better care, a better job. We could have formed a committee just for our military cannon to take care of it, to have I remember a time when they used to have a flower bin out here to beautify it and you know, put some love on it and bring it to life. But this is very, very historical thing right here, and I just wanted to get up close and personal for with it before the United States Army come and confiscate it and take their so-called unquote property back. This is Frankfurt Court.
We would, you stayed on this side here.
Yeah, we stayed like probably the third tree back, the second tree back. Oh, our tree died. Well, I won't say died. It was the broken branches, I should say. Like right there.
And this was the main road to get from Frankfurt to the end of the other section of Parkside.
Memories. And that convalescent home been there forever.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we first moved here, we moved on Frankfurt Court.
Oh, wow. And the wreck was like right here, and then the garden pool. Oh, I wish we could have preserved that.
If you follow this fence line, the fence line stops to the right. That's remember the wreck went, and then you had to jump the fence to get over into the pool. So
right.
That fence line really.
Man-made mound to pay homage to our ancestors for their blood, sweat, and tears to our Parkside community and beyond the borders, forts, and courts.
Uh-oh.
No, you're okay.
This is one of the trails, the most important trail of the Underground Railroad going to Canada is this one. It's called the Michigan Central Trail. It's really an old Indian trail that black people followed, and now you know it is I-94.